Hello and welcome, guys, to Cyber Diaries, episode number 19. And we got another amazing guest with us. So we got David McKenzie from Damn Good Security. First of all, welcome, David.
Thank you very much.
So, first of all, I guess, we've known each other for a little while, but obviously recently you went on to a new venture, Damn Good Security. So, and I know there are a little bit of a secret how this venture came about. So if you can tell a bit and explore, I guess, to our audience, what is Damn Good Security and how we came, I guess, how it came about to exist, first of all.
Yeah, so I've done IT and I've done cybersecurity and I ran security operations centers. People in this call may or may not have been a customer of mine at one point.
Yep.
But having done a lot of medium-sized businesses, having done a lot of really big critical national infrastructure type stuff, my business partners and I were lamenting on the fact that we kept getting bigger and bigger and doing bigger and bigger projects together, and then we were like, right, okay. And I actually, in between like one contract finishing and picking up another one, I was approached by a small business through a friend of the family that literally said, hey, we need help because we are apparently too small to get cybersecurity help. And I thought, this is really weird. Hang on a second, what do you mean? And you're like, right, okay. You are a small company, fine. Plenty of them in the UK. Happy to be one now. But there was a level of scale that they just weren't hitting that. And so they actually needed cybersecurity advice around some really basic stuff. Like, do we do MFA or do we need VPNs if we're working from home? We think we're going to get an audit from our customers, sort of thing. We're going to need to have answers for things. Are we ready for that? And when they approached a recommended vendor, a cybersecurity company in the Scottish area, they said, you're too small. We don't want to talk to you. And that like really, really annoyed me. And when I was sharing this story with a bunch of friends, they were like, yeah, that's just not right. And then we did a little bit of digging about and went, yeah, you know what? We are leaving behind as an industry, small and medium-sized businesses, because our vendors are looking for bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger customers, where everything's getting aimed at these really large enterprises. And even when you're a cybersecurity firm, you're looking for the best return in terms of your time versus what the customer is going to pay. And so we're like, all right, that's not great. So we sat around and tried to figure out how could we make something that would work. Excuse me. How could we make something that would work for lots of different businesses? He says, looking in a minibar for a drink, because that is really, really bad.
Yeah, take
Excellent. So, yeah, we had a conversation. It's like, right, okay, how can we deal with this sort of thing? Can we manage it? Can you even run a business with, and make, pay your mortgage, but also be able to do that level of small business engagement that isn't going to give you a massive return, is not going to give you like stupid like consultant rates for coming and doing work, but a lot of the stuff they need is important. And these are the businesses that when an incident happens, the ones that they go out of business, and 40 people lose their jobs because there isn't the cash reserves to be able to survive a cybersecurity attack. And they're the ones where you hear the horrible stories of, farmer gets defrauded for X because they didn't know any better and things like this. And you go, right, okay, can we do awareness stuff? Can we create cybersecurity products that we know will work and scale them at, small businesses? And we still do things like security audits for security operation centers, because that's like one of the things that we're all very passionate about. And in terms of we really dislike seeing a security operations center that isn't working for whatever reason, whether it's bad training, bad vendors, bad methodology, or even just poor relations inside the business. That's, like something that you think, yeah, security operations center is hard enough but if you're shackling it by not giving it resources, or people are not sure whether it's working or not, then you need to get that sorted. So we still do that sort of thing, but yeah, we spend a large amount of our time doing small and medium-sized businesses type work, ones where they think they're secure, but they're not. They believe they don't have enough knowledge in the business to know the right questions to ask, the right products to buy, and things like that. So going out and finding these people and helping them is a large part of what we do on a day-to-day basis.
There's quite a lot, I think, obviously, first of all, here to unpick, but I wanted to narrow down on a few things. So you obviously mentioned about, and I see this as well, quite often that, big, obviously, companies, or the companies that obviously start small, but they grow and reach a certain level where they take bigger and bigger clients, and obviously they don't talk to a smaller fish. I think in a way, there's obviously a problem in a few things I see, because obviously I always say to people, the type of metrics you create, the type of culture you foster in your organizations. So if your salespeople only are driven by achieving goals, then obviously, as you say, taking a business call or taking a sales call between contract that's 1 million and 10, 20 grand, you're obviously going to go to the big one. And that's,
Of
I
course
guess,
you are.
in some way, it's a very big problem, because I very rarely see that actually relationships and retention are measured by cybersecurity vendors. That's one bad thing that constantly happens. And it creates that sort of cycle, as you say, where does the small guy go? And I think there's so many, if we look at statistics, I think it's about 80-90% of people are employed for, small to medium type enterprises, sort of moms and pop shops. I think, I don't know, people who have seen, our chat with Keith Price, National Highways. I think
Mhm.
he had some great ideas regarding, potentially, expanding its SOC as a service across the supply chain, and actually help the smaller companies to actually roll out the services. So I think there's obviously a few ways to go about it, but how do you guys find so far, obviously, engaging the smaller business? You mentioned, for example, I'll give you another very big example where I think sometimes even the education is very important. So I talked to a good friend of mine who runs is a Southeast Cybersecurity Center. And obviously they get constantly calls where obviously people they either scam, they defrauded, He got a call from a lady who was crying her eyes out because her bank account has been absolutely cleaned out. Obviously, the first question, as you mentioned, before, it was, have you had an MFA on it? She says, yes, I did. But one of my good friends told me that they do not believe in MFA, so I turned it off. 5 hours later, her bank account was empty.
Wow.
Now, in those scenarios, I think it's very sensitive topic. And how do you approach someone? Because they've been told they don't believe this technology thing, same as might be, someone who owns the business, they might believe the same. So it's very hard conversation, I guess, to approach.
For us, we've been lucky, I suppose. So we've had a lot of word of mouth. So like Scott McGrady, the other main business, the other co-founder of Damn Good Security, and between us, we've worked with a lot of different people, and we like both in and out of the industry, which means that there's a kind of word of mouth of the, hey, those guys are doing something and they are really nice. Go and speak to them; they will help you out, and they're not there to just try and push a product or whatever. It's like, right, okay, come tell me what your problems are and let's have a conversation about it. And yeah, I've had plenty of conversations with people that didn't end up in a sales cycle or anything like that. It was just, hey, no, you should go do this, this, and this. Don't worry about those things. And if you do need that or that, give me a call. That's not a problem. We'll organize something, but you don't need to worry about this. But yeah, that word of mouth thing is massively valuable because we're in the industry that's in a very sensitive area. People need to be able to trust us, and people are largely distrustful of technology because, social media, the news are all telling us horrible things that are happening in the background. So people really don't know who to trust. And having been an IT professional for years, like my pet peeve was always the man in the van that would go around and, deal with small companies, but really do a terrible job, not really know what they're doing, and, take a grand from that company and turn up like once a fortnight maybe, and then blame everybody else under the sun for any problems that they've generated. That stuff used to drive me insane. And we're getting to the point where we see that as well. So bad IT providers, or even good IT providers that are trying to move into security. And so you end up with loads of conflicting advice because we have a movable technology feast, and the only correct answer in cybersecurity is it depends. Because everything depends. Everything depends on the threat model, the crown jewels that you're worrying about, what your business does. Had a conversation and sat there and went, right, okay, you don't need to worry about activists because you're a supplier of those people. They're going to go and superglue their face to the outside of that bank rather than come and bother you. So, that's not something that you need to put on your risk register, not in any real sense. So, like having people understand what risk is, and a lot of them, small businesses innately understand risk because quite often, especially at the beginning, they're worried about cash flow and they know they have risks if that doesn't happen and that doesn't happen. When you articulate risk and you go, hey, cybersecurity risk is exactly the same as everything else. And if you own a business, then and you own a premise, that you have to have health and safety, you have to have fire, all of these things. Cybersecurity is exactly the same. But there's so many people running around just giving out completely conflicting bits of advice that, like unsecured DNS is going to end the world.
Oh yes, the
Stuff like that.
famous Mr. DNS. Yeah.
Just nonsense like that. And to be honest, most of the time when these people are shouting, there's normally a very specific extra. This is going to definitely end the world is the biggest problem. Good news, I happen to sell the exact thing that fixes that. You're like, really? I mean, nobody understands all the different contexts. You must have you must have 2FA, but don't trust like texts. And you can't have that certain type of phone because the Chinese might have hacked it. And you're thinking, there's so many different cybersecurity risks because there's so many different scenarios that people might find themselves in. But when everybody's shouting really loudly, you need to worry about this. You need to worry about DNS. You need to worry about multi-factor authentication. You need to have VPNs. You can't have VPNs. Let's all have a good argument about whether you should change your password regularly or not. We can't even make up our minds as an industry what is good. How does a mom and pop shop, how does a medium-sized business that is massively reliant on their IT now, but they still don't have a domain. They just log in with the password that's sellotaped to the front of the machine, and then they go to Office 365 or Gmail to do all their stuff. How are they supposed to figure out what they're supposed to do? And so it drives me insane. And the whole bad sales pitches and all of that sort of stuff. And you're just saying, look, no, I don't do a sales pitch. I mean, our idea of a vendor stand, a thing is literally, could we just have a couple of couches and we'll just sit on it and go, hey, come down, sit and chat, tell us what you do. Because that's part of the wonderful bit about cybersecurity. If you're working as an MSSP or, contract or something like that, is you get to speak to loads of different businesses and find out about, what matters to them and how things work. You're sitting going, all right, okay, if the plastic palm trees. I use Plastic Palm Trees Company as a massive example for everything. It's mildly hilarious. It turns up in all my talks, just about. And you're saying, going, right, okay, Plastic Palm Trees Company, let's sit down and talk about them. And they have to worry about, the supplier of plastic. I didn't think about that. And the guy that brings them boxes for the plastic palm trees to go in. Didn't really think, when you're thinking about plastic palm trees, you don't think about the risk of, your box supplier getting hacked. And then you're saying, right, do I need to worry about the 3D models getting stolen by like China? And then all of a sudden your really nice plastic palm trees ends up on Temu. There's just, you always have to sit there and you walk into any new business, you've not worked with them of that type before, and you find all the weird things. I've had a couple of like newspaper customers down the years, and one of the big interesting ones for them was a incident response. Yep, great. Don't care what you do, as long as those machines there work at 2 o'clock in the morning, because that's when the print presses have to run by.
Yep.
You're saying, right, okay, there's a new wrinkle for incident response. You're right, okay, when we're building incident response plans, you build that stuff in. We get to talk to loads of different businesses about their problems. Problem is, small ones get left behind quite a lot. So that's why we focus there to try and figure out how can we make that work.
I think sometimes, as you rightly say, it seems that our industry sometimes, in a way, has left the voice of reason. On the one hand side, you got media creating headlines that obviously is a clickbait, and it's always spouting FUD.
Mm-hmm.
On a second sort of spectrum as well, I think, which doesn't help. You got this new VC money that came in to raise the unicorns and businesses, and obviously, some people what do not understand. As soon as you get VC money, you are pushed to no end to acquire customers and grow to crazy extents because they want their money back.
Yeah.
So, and as you see some of these unicorns, they create the marketing campaigns that got nothing to do with cybersecurity. It's there to sell the product, selling AI sprinkled crap all over the place. And then the voice of reason dies. So I don't know. There's a few things I think that should hopefully change in our industry, whether it's regulation. I guess the hard bit is because regulation can never keep up with this. But I think the important point, as you say, as long as we maintain that voice of reason, and I think the point is obviously people trying to, those cybersecurity influencers, think who shouts the loudest is obviously the right, So, as I think Greg Van der Grass rightly says, too many people doing cyber instead of actually, if you look at statistics over the last number of years, the amount of spend in cybersecurity is increased, but breaches are increasing at the same rate. So that means all we're doing is just firefighting, and that's I think it's a big proponent, as you say. We need to think about how we improve quality and actually address the issues that are caused, but it needs a voice of reason and it needs thought. Circling back to obviously you kind of portrayed a bit what you guys doing. Looking at the website, obviously, you guys emphasize quite a few things. So first and foremost, obviously, as you say, yes, you need to pay the mortgage, but at the same time, as you say, commitment to fairness and equality. How do you feel that differentiates, you guys from other cybersecurity businesses?
Right. Well, if you just read the website, it doesn't at all.
Yeah.
Because everybody says that they're doing, like the let's. I've worked for various companies that as soon as you've got a good message, you can suddenly find all your competitors suddenly doing the same thing. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. The internet is allowed to lie the way that TV waves are not and radio waves are not. And so I mean, like every time I get hit with like spam ads and stuff like that, and whatever game I'm playing on my phone at an airport or whatever, you just sit there and go, that's just lies. It's like, I can guarantee you're not a verified partner of PayPal. I can guarantee you nobody in PayPal has ever heard of you. But suddenly you're a verified partner of something everybody hears and trusts. So, okay. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, trust has to be earned. And you can either earn it directly or you earn it by that message spreading around. And yeah, I mean, I would never. So if somebody comes to, in fact, several people have come to us and said, "Hey, we think we need this, 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 and this. So what would that cost?" Like, don't care. Like, stop. Right, one, you're going to pay me for like 2 or 3 days of sitting down and talking to you and understanding where you are, and you'll get this shiny, this is where you are and this is where we think you should be going. You cannot jump. If you don't have cybersecurity expertise in your company, please do not jump straight to, I saw this on the internet and I'm going to buy it. Now, there's exceptions. Somebody comes in and says, "Hey, we're trying to do a DLP program and we don't have the expertise. Can you help?" Like, yeah, sure. Let's go talk about data protection, not data DLP, and let's have a. Do you need it everywhere, or do you need it in some places? Because let's not spend a ton of money. Sorry, vendors of random cybersecurity
Don't
products,
try and
but
buy AI DLP. That's gonna
yeah,
solve
yeah.
everything.
So hey, let's not worry too much about what you need. If you haven't already done some sort of threat modeling and understand where you are in the scale of things, then I'm happy to sit and talk to you for an hour about stuff for absolutely nothing.
No.
And then if you like what I say or what Scott says, then fine. Let's schedule something in that's a few days of sitting down and talking with you, understanding what your business is and what your risks are and where you are with them. And then we'll sit there and say, yeah, you can do that. And if you need a hand picking a DLP, then fine. We're more than happy to sit there and look at vendors with you and give you that sort of advice. I mean, RFP help and stuff like that is, yeah, for many years I did RFP responses,
No.
and I've done the RFP marking of responses coming back. Cybersecurity firms hate when I'm that marking the RFP because it will be like, really, show me, how do you do that? Because it says here, and it's like that sales bump, explain to me exactly how that works, and you see them, fall to pieces. And you're like, yeah, look, I'm not interested in sales crap. I understand how the sausage is made. So let's talk about the ingredients and how good your sausage is going to be. So that sort of help and building that level of trust. So yeah, I never go straight into, yes, you definitely need this. It's very, very, very rare that somebody already has all the expertise and then they're going to come and ask me to verify stuff. I mean, I've had people approach me to sit and go, I know this stuff, I don't have the bandwidth, and I know that you can deal with this. Please come and help. Like, yeah, great, that's fine. There's a sit down, figure out exactly what success looks like, and then we'll go and do it. But if it's one of these small and medium sized customers that are sitting going, yeah, we are worried, we don't know. It's like, right, okay, you're not buying stuff. Let's sit down and talk about it first, and then tell you what you need to worry about. So no, you do not need VPNs for people working from home. Yes, you need MFA. I mean, this stuff is people will roll their eyes in the cybersecurity industry saying they've not got the basics right. They don't know what the basics are. Stop lambasting people about not having the basics because they don't know, or they inherited stuff that they don't know and they don't have the bandwidth to go and pick it up. So yeah, for me, we keep going on and on at conferences and whenever we interact with non-cybersecurity people. And we keep going, yeah, you should be definitely doing all this. I've talked literally an analyst who stood up and stood in his chair and went, I've had enough of this customer. I cannot believe this. They've done this and they've opened RDP open to the internet. Sit down. Right. I can guarantee you that IT guy was assigned for 5 minutes of that project. Nothing was connecting to anything. So they did any rule in the firewall to see if it was a firewall that was stopping the traffic.
No.
And then they went, oh yeah, that's working right. Don't touch anything while we do X, Y, and Z. And then the IT guy goes, right, okay, paper jam and the CEO's assistant's printer need to go and do all that, and never comes back to it because he then went to another fire and another fire and another fire. That guy's not incompetent. He's overworked. So let's not stand up and start shouting that people are doing things wrong and say, don't really care how you got here. Let's fix it and make sure it can't happen again. And if somebody needs training, great. If somebody's incompetent and maliciously incompetent, then fine. We can have a conversation about that person and their current career prospects. But sitting and shouting about and pointing fingers and blame, we've done that way too much in this industry. We've told all the users repeatedly in every organization that they're the biggest problem that we're going to have, and then we've told them that they're the only solution that we'll ever have, and then we told them that they definitely they are responsible for not clicking on malicious links in emails.
No. But
then we've allowed an ecosystem where, every time I go in, somebody goes, should we do phishing simulations? It has its place. It's not a silver bullet for anything. For a start, I can be phished.
Yeah.
and I can fish anybody. I mean, there is nobody that I couldn't get with a good lure, because it's
Yeah.
all about timing, knowing the pressure points. Nobody is immune to being fished. So at that point, why are you chasing down the one person that clicked on it once in the 6 months? What you should be working on is, and the big thing is the ideal that I would love to be able to say I'd managed to completely implement somewhere, was that no one user or device or process can be compromised in a way that materially damages the company's business.
Yeah. I think it's an important thing that you mentioned here because, that's why I like, there's a few things obviously to stitch up here. That's why I like talking from Gem or from Culture Gem, because
Mm-hmm.
too many times people remove the human element from cybersecurity. I always say to people, like, you can do whatever you want. If someone's job is open 200 emails a day, there's no chance you can rely on him or never clicking on a phishing link. That's
Of
impossible.
course. I mean, like, please don't open attachments from people you don't know. I work in HR. I get CVs sent to me every single day. As
Yeah.
it, the DLP is being configured to make sure that it detects that you might be sending banking details somewhere. So the person in finance now gets a DLP message every single time they send an email, because their job is to send bank details backwards and forwards to people.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to remember that we're
Yeah.
here to
And
serve
as
businesses and people.
yeah, and as you say, for example, even sometimes such a thing as basics, we keep talking about cybersecurity basics such as, MFA and all of that. Now, if it was that basic, we wouldn't have incidents because of that. And we have incidents because of that still in big organizations, because even the basics such as MFA is not easy to complete when you have 20, 30,000, staff workforce.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like you could lose control of your Twitter account, even though you're a giant cybersecurity firm.
Yeah, exactly. Even that, we talked a bit, I guess, about, small, medium-sized businesses. Did you guys had to consciously tailor your services or do something different to basically work towards, helping those smaller organizations?
Oh, I mean, definitely. So yes, so you do not do a 3-week consulting project to create a cybersecurity strategy for a small company. You talk to them for 20 minutes and then say, here you go, that's enough. But there is an element of the, yes, you still need to be charging a reasonable amount, because actually if you give something out for too little money, then people don't trust it, which is mildly amusing. But you're sitting going, yeah. But everybody, like, you've got Defender, right? So you're saying on, like, one of the worst incidents I was ever involved in and had to deal with what ended up being well, if you had just looked in Microsoft Sentinel, you would have seen the Defender alert that said Cobalt Strike, but it was Friday at 7 o'clock at night. And while it did come through as a critical P1, they didn't have anybody. In fact, the Sentinel console was full of hundreds of alerts, and it was only because I was scrolling through, looking to see if we'd seen anything around the time of the incident, and then started working my way back, and then found this, and you're saying, "Going right, that was a multinational, like worldwide company, lost everything apart from, I think, the Brazilian office because it had a really crap internet link." But yeah, I mean, they lost everything, complete ransomware everywhere, and you're sitting going, and then I'm saying, "Well, look, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but if you'd seen that on the Friday night, you wouldn't have had this on the Sunday morning." And people going, so getting the best investment, but getting the best out of your investment, like the matter whether you're using Defender, if you're using CrowdStrike, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, if you don't have people looking at the console or understanding that. But then when you look at it, you go, they're like, somebody looking at console 24 hours a day for any organization, you're talking 100K minimum. And if you want to build a full 24/7 SOC inside your own company, you're looking at 2 to 3 million quid. If you're, doing it vaguely right. And a lot of that is just people costs, because you need people and need to pay them to be there at night and things like that. It's not a cheap thing to look at that. And
Yep.
even if you have someone that, your IT staff will log in and look at the console every morning, most of the time they don't even understand the context of the alerts. Just because it's got a plug in it doesn't mean that IT can do it. I mean, for many years it was like, you would get phone calls to an IT help desk saying their kettle was broken. It's like, look, because it's got a plug on it doesn't mean you can phone me about it. And similarly, just because it seems like it's on a computer doesn't mean that, somebody in IT is going to have the skills and knowledge to go and know what the context of that particular type of alert is, what it actually means. What is cross-site scripting? I can guarantee you can ask a ton of like IT people to go and look at some of the acronyms in our business and go, tell me what those are. And they wouldn't have a clue. Never mind, are they important or not? So it becomes we've made a smoke and mirrors game for everybody. And then now we lambast them when they don't have the skills to be able to do it and they're not looking at it 24/7. So trying to come up with how do you solve that for small and medium-sized businesses? So, okay, then pay me to look at your console for an hour a day or an hour every couple of days. There you go. You can take a 200, 300K bill from a 9 to 5 SOC and turn it into 20K. That works because you've suddenly got a cybersecurity expert looking at your cybersecurity alerts. That you can do things like that. I'm always a fan, and people have done talks, etc. on it. Massive fan of Thinks Canary. So I'm sitting going, right, okay, you don't need a 24/7 monitoring solution, but you are really worried if your network's going to be breached or your website's going to be breached or your AWS environment's going to be breached. You know what? Fine. For, again, like 20K or something like that, I'll go and deploy this stuff and I'll monitor 24/7 for you, but just at Canary, because I can put in this, here's a juicy target inside your network, and not worry about any of the other controls and just think, well, look, just that one thing. And even when I built SOCs, I used to stress, like, it's a stressful job in cybersecurity. I used to stress that one of my analysts, like the new analyst on his first night on the night shift, was going to pick up a ticket and mess it up. Not because I'd hired somebody who was stupid, just because maybe it was difficult. They didn't quite know. And so you sit and go, right, okay. And if that, at that point you go, what? That's especially if you're an MSSP, suddenly you're like, oh my God, you mess up like a ticket for one of your customers and they end up being breached because of it. That's, contract ending, potentially company ending stuff, especially when you're starting out. It's like, this is terrifying. And then I'm sitting going, you know what? And so I always ended up deploying a honeypot inside the network and just go, you know what? No matter what else happens, no matter what complicated alerts they've got in, this thing comes in, all hands to the pump, you've got an incident because you've been breached. And so, and so I loved sticking them in, and you just sit and going, and I can easily cover that 24/7 with, very minimal staff because there's such a high fidelity alert.
I wanted to pick your brains as well about SOCs. Obviously you built a number of them. I built as well, and especially looking from the other side, when I advise now potential, clients or potential, friends that are thinking, I just spoke to some as well who was looking to build a SOC. I always say, and I wanted to get your opinion, I guess, on this. I don't believe you should fully outsource the SOC. And what I mean by this, I'm not saying you need to, hire a team or anything. But I think you should always have at least one or two analysts inside who can do the business context and communication between the SOC as well as drive the SOC maturity. Because, and I've seen examples, especially now, I worked with a few pen testing companies who came, did a penetration test, breached their applications, and SOC was none the wiser.
Yeah.
Because I think the problem is sometimes people forget SOC is not something that you buy and leave there. As soon as you plug it in, within its time, the same as risk, its point in time assessment, same as risk, it starts depreciating its value if you don't do anything with it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yes. So there are certain businesses that should never outsource their SOC, in my opinion, because the crux of it is an outsourced provider. Their first concern is their company, not my company. And sometimes if an incident is that time critical, there is a potential there. There's a whole bunch of confidentiality, critical national infrastructure. it's a numbers game, and quite often people end up wanting to bring it back in-house because an outsourced SOC is trying to run things at scale. And running things at scale is doable for 90% of the companies in the UK easily, right? So like, yeah, it will work absolutely fine. But where you start needing a lot of business context and stuff like that in it, that stuff's really hard to do at scale, which means you're either paying more to the provider, or they just can't do it at all. And so you end up with this, right? I cannot just outsource everything to the SOC. As a SOC provider, yeah, I've seen plenty of SOC. I mean, God, I've seen loads of service reviews being done with people that a SOC provider comes in, throws a PowerPoint up on the screen in Teams or whatever, says, here's the numbers, blah, 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 nods and says, hey, look how great we were this month. We didn't fail any KPIs. Thanks very much. We'll send you the bill. You're like, right, hang on a second. None of those numbers actually make any sense, and none of them actually drive behaviors that make me more secure day on day. Stop. And I have pulled up some pretty major SOC vendors on it and just sat there and went, that time to response number, like, yeah, it's like, I'm calling bullshit on it. It's like, I just do not believe that number. I'm saying, by any chance, are you including things that are closed automatically because essentially tuning as part of your response time? And they went, well, yeah, that's an automatically closed ticket. Like, right. So what you're saying is you're closing noise, it's getting done in fractions of milliseconds, and then you're adding that to the average, which is the human response time. It's like, no.
Exactly.
And you think, well, but I can do that because I've run these services and I know what looks normal and what looks right. And you ask them, how many people have you got on my account? Are they dedicated and things like that? And to be able to sit and go, right, okay, that number doesn't make any sense. And also, I have a bee in my bonnet about like numbers and making people chase the wrong numbers. And so I always sit there and go, right, okay, I don't actually care about that number. I don't care about that number. I don't care about that one. What I like, things like I've had customers come to me and say, hey, we need an SLA on the time to close security incidents. Like, no, because that does not drive a good behavior at all. But again, it comes down to that scaling thing. MSSPs are doing things at scale. They are necessarily trying to get as many tickets done by their analysts done as quickly as possible. And so there is an element of there's a bigger risk of a mistake being made as opposed to somebody that only has to deal with 10 tickets in a day and so can spend their time investigating it. On the other side, you get far better expertise in an MSSP because there's more training and you are doing things like certs and all these, and you get 24/7, which is hard to do internally. The best incident responders, if I'm hiring an incident response person for a firm, if your CV doesn't say that you worked for an MSSP, you're probably not going to get like an interview because if you are an incident response person and you haven't worked for an MSSP, then the odds are you've never seen an incident, or you've seen one or two, and it was two easy business email compromises. They were really low level things. Whereas I need somebody that's dealt with ransomware. I need somebody that's dealt with having to do forensics at 2:00 in the morning. And so, yeah, when I'm trying to hire a head of incident response for a firm, then, that's like sort of, no, you need somebody that's had to do it plenty of times. I've had to do it plenty of times. You do not get that exposure without being an MSSP. So in a lot of, when I speak to students and stuff like that, somebody says, hey, I'm really interested in incident response. It's like, great, you need to go and work for an MSSP because otherwise you're not going to get the experience in any decent timescale that would mean that you are going, if you want to be good at it, go work for an MSSP because that's where you're going to get that exposure. But yeah, there's a lot of factors. It depends. Hey, it depends. Should you outsource your SOC? I think most companies cannot afford having, if you're looking at medium-sized businesses, a lot of them can't afford having a cybersecurity person on tap or like in-house. And at that point, there's a danger that an MSSP will steamroller over you. And even with the best will in the world, some of the MSSPs will quite happily just keep, hey, everything looks normal, done the tickets, got all the stuff going in. Thanks, that's a nice quiet account. If you don't have somebody that's challenging and knows how to challenge inside, and you
Yeah.
also need, to be honest, as an MSSP provider, I never want to have my analyst be the person that phones the end user, because that takes up tons of time and you're trying to track someone down and, hey, was that you that did that on that day, and things like
Yeah.
that. You hand that back to the company to go and chase that stuff
Yeah,
down.
and that's what I'm saying. I think that's why you need the internal expertise, not just because of chasing, but even the simple thing, you need someone who understands the business of how to take the maturity. Because even something, some simple thing like, we'll use Microsoft security tools. Now, but if you take a normal IT guy to implement, Defender for endpoint, Defender for cloud, deploy all of the policies in Intune for attack surface reduction and all of that, these people are going to get lost in all of that. To
Well,
get
the thing
that.
is, and by the time you've done it, the odds are that you have to go back and update some of them. I
Yeah,
mean, the number of people that have not ticked half the buttons in Defender, that they have now paid for a whole bunch of really cool stuff,
no,
but nobody's ever had the time to go and find out about them, and then investigate what the use cases would be, whether it would work, and then go and do a trial and make sure they can roll it out safely. It's a lot of work
no,
keeping up with a lot of these tools, even when you bought one, because they're all evolving constantly.
no. I wanted to get a bit of thought and explanation, I guess, behind just the right security monitoring. What do you guys mean by that?
Well, so that's that. I'm very big on understand what your threat is and then design your defenses for that. And even then, when you do small and medium-sized businesses, you can sit there and go, hey, your threat model is this. Ugh, you should be spending, you need 24/7 coverage of that thing over there. That's quite hard to do. And so making sure that people are buying the stuff that matters and protecting the things that matters. I have spoken to customers that want to buy a SOC from me and turned around and said, you don't need a SOC just now, because you don't actually have EDR deployed to all your machines. So use the budget that you thought you were about to spend on a SOC, go fix the EDR. If you want a hand with that, more than happy to, apply some time for you. But you are not ready for that. So please don't. And so the right size security modern is that, right, okay, you need something that covers you 24/7. Okay, let's use deception tech. Let's put canary or honeypot in there and manage that, because to go and get stateful packet inspection firewalls, the top tier, the Cloudflare, blah, 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 you can't afford that. Your business doesn't work, but you still need some of these protections. So taking a lot of the lessons and things that I've learned from deploying big things and big projects, sitting there going, right, how can I distill it down? So there's a lot of strategy stuff is pretty straightforward for small and medium-sized businesses. You need to do X, Y, and Z. And a lot of small and medium-sized businesses are having to do some of these things because supply chain questionnaires are coming from their big customers. So you get a lot of that, and you're sitting going, right, and we've helped. One of our first customers at Damn Good Security was literally someone that their IT provider had filled in the cybersecurity form really badly, and they were about to lose their biggest customer because the red flags all over the place. And so it went from they should have chose not applicable for a lot of things, instead chose no. So it suddenly went from you should have skated through, not really need to do much, to you actually now have to have a documented strategy for X, Y, and Z. So we went off and wrote all the strategies and put bits and pieces in for them so they can say, go, right, okay, for the next year, that's you kind of covered. So you want to keep moving it forward? Great, but you're covered for your supply chain questionnaire.
Yep.
But yeah, getting that, what do you need? So having that conversation with someone and then saying, right, okay, you only need somebody to look at your to make sure that your security tooling is working and look at your alerts. It's for like half an hour a day. So fine, you know what, for an hour every 2 days, we'll go in, have a quick look at it, make sure everything's still running, make sure things are up to date, and then go and investigate the same way a full 24/7 SOC would do that alert and make sure that that is okay. And it is the right, okay, that can be the difference between, an organization ending event and not, which is what it's there for. People can't, small and medium-sized businesses can't afford a 24/7 SOC, but quite often, having someone that's on tap. So, just having someone looking at the consoles or looking at, the alerts coming out of whatever tooling they do have already and just making sure that stuff's working and doing what they think it is, that's fairly trivial for me to provide. And then I can sit there and go, you know what? Right, there you go. That an hour a day there. And if there is a problem, we're there. We're not going to suddenly start charging you a ton more money and things like that. It is, you only need that. You need 24/7 monitoring because you're worried about someone breaching your network. Fine, you can have 24/7 monitoring. But just because we're looking at that one canary sitting in your network. And then we go, right, there you go. You have 24/7 monitoring. You can truthfully answer on any supply chain that you have 24/7 monitoring, but it's only if this really high fidelity alert. And again, that's fairly trivial for me to design, deploy, and then maintain it going forwards to make sure it's relevant. So,
Yep. Okay, good. I guess, time flies when you're having fun. So I guess to round it off, I wanted to see, obviously we in cybersecurity predict more than a couple of years in advance is crazy. But what do you see, especially I guess for small to medium-sized businesses, what do you see as kind of challenges coming in the next year or two? And how do you think, damn good security potentially help address those challenges for companies?
oof. So there's a bit of, yeah, we'll try and distill them. So AI is going to affect everybody one way or the other. Even if it's just clogging up your inbox with nonsense. But our industry itself will change. Within 5 years, the first line SOC analyst job should be redundant.
Yep.
Which gives us interesting challenges and, like bringing people into the industry and things like that. But again, a lot of small and medium-sized businesses need to be worried about what AI looks like and how that might suddenly drive them out of business. And I honestly generally can't help with that. That's the thing that, we're worried about. You're saying, right, okay, you need to be on top of these things. Some companies are going to have to massively pivot or they will just not exist. Same way that, people that made buggy whips disappeared when cars came along.
Yep.
You still get them, but it's very few and far between. Maintaining AI suddenly means it's another technical revolution. At least that's what everybody happens to believe, which means that, all the tools are updating. And a lot of tools are updating in really bad ways. And when I say really bad, I mean you can now, use our tool and without knowing the query language that we use, you can ask the AI in English, do I have anything I need to worry about in these logs? And it'll come back and say no. Like, great. Do you trust that stuff? How do you trust that? How does that work? That vigilance around making sure that the products you're getting. I also have a minor bugbear around when larger enterprises or when you've got a security team that's using an AI in natural language. If you're not able to write the query, why would I think that you would be good at dealing with the output? And also, quite often, I need things to be forensically exact. Now, it's not because I'm a control freak. I am, but there is somebody might have to go to jail because of this. Now, let's not go into the legal system and how the hell that works in cyber, and it's horrible. But you need to have forensic evidence that says we did this, then we did that, then we did that. And that's why we can attest that Joe Blogs pushed that button and caused that problem. Or, well, yes, Mr. Defense Attorney, what I did is I said, hey, does anybody do anything bad? And it said, Joe did something bad. I don't know why it said that. How's that an expert witness? So you have this big problem that a lot of these tools are, the AI implementation takes away the trust in the tool because you don't know how it works. And there will be an element eventually where we can trust AI, but right now everybody is just lamping onto everything and throwing things in. And that explosion of new tech, new shiny buttons and things like that. And you're just thinking, right, some of this stuff is going to be rubbish. Some of it's going to be fantastic. I work with an AI company that will replace SOC analysts eventually. But right now it helps SOC analysts do their job better. And that, but ultimately, the ultimate, you see it projecting going, yeah, at some point, you're just no longer have a first line. You'll have second line. And then eventually, let's face it, you'll probably replace second line and you'll go to third line. I'm not quite sure how you ever find a third line SOC analyst if you've not got first and second anymore. But that's a funny problem to fix. And I don't think it will be me that fixes it, because I have no idea how we fix the education system and experience system and get people into that. But I am happy to have those conversations. But yeah, I think small and medium-sized businesses are just going to get spammed. They're going to get AI attacks. And if they don't have something that's capable of dealing with that, then yeah. I mean, so phishing, for example, that whole, now you've got deep, I mean, what was the bank that, like had a Teams call that authorized it and stuff like that, deep fake, understanding and doing that. And to be honest, damn good security is always there to try and demystify. I will call a spade a spade. I will not call it a third gen military grade dirt extraction tool. It's a spade. So and so yeah, it's the demystifying these things and understanding where the risk lies and whether the tool will fix X, Y, and Z. And I think the push towards removing that ability for one person to click on a phishing link or to receive a video call and then go and do something massively damaging in an organization, that's where we need to go, because we can no longer expect someone to be able to determine whether something's true or false. So that's why you need processes like 4eyes process. 2 people have to look at it and approve. These sorts of things. They're going to have to go in, and so identifying where those processes are and how to implement something that's doesn't damage the business but protects it. That's where we'll always end up being, because it's right. How do we protect people? And I don't think the answer is always going to be defensive tools. It's going to be defensive processes.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think AI is coming here to stay. But I think one thing to mention on the end is, I think vendors and companies who are trying to replace humans, I think they're not going to come out on top. I think the AI goal should be to empower people to achieve more than try to replace them.
Yeah.
And I think the key point, as you mentioned, is building AI, but you need a way for people to retain skills, because if there is no mechanism to verify what AI is telling you, then there's going to be a lot of problems. But yeah, as I say, there's funny and interesting challenges up ahead. And on that note, David, thank you much for coming along. I think it's another insightful episode exploring how and what are the challenges faced by some smaller businesses, and how we can what changes are need to be made to make sure that we can help businesses and we're not moving just towards the profits.
Cool. Lovely to be here, mate.